When I got to that school, the first things that people were saying around me was, Mpho Dagada, which means this guy's family lost all the money. Who's an entrepreneur that failed? They'll all look at you. I first learned this word when I got to America. They said, fail forward. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, in America, if you start a startup, you fail forward, meaning if you fail, you might land up on another idea. I said, I want to write a book.
Yeah.
They said, okay, you want to write a book? This is interesting. What is the book about? I told them it's about Bitcoin. At that time, it was still new. Everybody said, what? Money is not something to buy food with.
Yeah.
It's something to open up opportunity.
Yeah.
And in the US, they are very clear about that. I find that, the black billionaires, I don't know what the problem is. There is not even one black billionaire that has successfully invested in other generation companies.
Hi there, and welcome back to the Leadership with Mutondi R podcast. And today, like many other days, I have a phenomenal leader right here with me. So my guest today is Mpho Dagada. Mpho is a phenomenal leader, guys. He's a best-selling author, entrepreneur. He's been a leader in blockchain. He is the president of Arise South Africa and so many other things, right? So, Mpho, you are welcome to the podcast. Can you please just introduce yourself to our guests and, just tell us about yourself and your journey of leadership?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I've been watching the podcast. It's a very inspiring podcast, so thank you for that. My name is Mpho Dagada. I am an author, I am a speaker, I am an investor, and also an entrepreneur. I also advise government at some stage of my life, and I'm also a leader of a political party. So I wear many hats.
Sure.
But yeah.
Not to mention that all this at the tender age of 30. Guys, I am blown away. So, Mpho, can you just share with us your journey where you have started up until now? I know you've accomplished a lot of things and I think it blows our minds how you're able to do it. So maybe if you can just shed some light on how you grew up and how you became what you are now.
So I grew up in Redefining in Limpopo. I grew up with both parents, and growing up, I was a very quiet kid, very young. I was very, very quiet. And I was raised also by my grandparents. And I think where things sort of shifted for me was when I was introduced to Sunday school.
Okay.
We went to Sunday school in the church that we were in. And the lessons that I learned from Sunday school, I found them to be very interesting. And I also had that childlike curiosity. Just trying to understand these things. You know? And from a very young age, I was very curious. I remember when I was young, listening to the stories that were taught in Sunday school about David and Goliath. And, they would say that David was a young man and he killed Goliath, And for me, it was just not a story. I was like, if my parents believe this thing and if my grandparents believe this thing is real,
Sure.
So I think from a young age, grew up learning those stories. And from a young age, started to, pick up certain aspects and certain characteristics and really focus on them. And after growing up, went to primary school in Luthergat. I went to a few primary schools. I went to Soutpansberg Primary School. Then I went to Ridgeway Primary School. Then when it came to high school, I went to Stanford Lake College in Tzaneen. And then I came back and I went to Hoërskool Luthergat.
Okay, no. Now it makes sense. No. Like, I know those schools, all of them that you mentioned, because I also went to school in Utrecht. But these are like your good schools, so it explains also the English because it is Englishing. So after that, what happened?
So after that, I finished school. So what happened was I went to boarding school in Tzaneen in Stanford Lake College. And it was a very good school. There were a lot of kids that were there. It was a very expensive school. So I knew the situation that I came from in terms of home. And I knew that both my parents were working. My dad used to work at Old Mutual. My mom was a nurse.
Okay.
So I kind of understood that, that school fees, they can't really afford it. And also I was missing home because when you are in a boarding school, there's the expense of all of that. I mean, I always tell the story that, I went to a boarding school in Stanford and I used to get a lift from the CEO of De Beers' daughter. So because the CEO of the De Beers mine, the daughter was going to that school. They lived in Musina at the Kimberley mine. De Beers decided to get a bus and a driver to drive the kid of the CEO to school every Monday morning, and bring them back every Friday. So I used to get a lift from there.
Wow.
So I knew already that, okay, the kids that go there are very, very wealthy. And my parents were just working. So it got to a point where I thought, okay, you know what? I've learned what I needed to learn. I was in about grade 10. I thought, okay, let me go back home and let me attend a school close to home. So that's when I attended Hoërskool Utrecht.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. And I think you're touching on a very important point when you mention the daughter of the CEO of De Beers. And to me, it just means, your environment and those who you spend time with can, sort of like affect the trajectory of your life. Because now because you are going to the same school as the CEO's daughter, you get some of the benefits. How do you think the private school that you attended shaped your life and who you've become?
I think it's, to be very honest, one of the things that we really underestimate the words, the language, and the thinking that children pick up in school. And I think that's something that I realize, from where I came from, Utrecht, it being a small town, a lot of the language that was used was always very small. I always say to somebody that, growing up in Venda, we only saw McDonald's. It's this generation that's seeing McDonald's. We didn't see McDonald's.
Thinking about it,
and because Limpopo is such a small, I don't want to say small, but I want to say it's not like a city like Johannesburg where, the kids can go to this school or that school. So what happens is all the kids of the wealthy individuals in Limpopo, they all end up in the same place, which is Stanford Lake College. So you're going to school with the son of the Lekhanyanes. This is now the bishop's son. You're going to school with Kasim Atale's nephew. This was the premier at the time. You're going to school with... So when you get into that environment, and I was coming from Utrecht, a very small town, and you hear the way they speak, it's completely different. Because remember, I was coming from parents that were working, right?
Yes.
So the language we spoke was if we were going to fly to Durban, we would go on an economy class flight and go to the end of Durban, Ushaka Marine, and get a small little flat.
Yes.
That was our holiday, you know. And then you begin to hear other people say, no, on my holiday I went to Croatia. And, you hear them say, no, on my holiday I was in Paris.
Yeah.
And you're this young boy from Venda thinking, my mom doesn't know where Paris is. And now it's time to say, where did you go for holiday?
Oh, wow.
And you're thinking, my goodness, all I can say is, Vera Machawawe or Hondoya.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, okay, what do I do here, And I think it's growing up and hearing that language that really opened up my mind, asking questions. I began to ask questions to say, okay, so if you're saying that this is your dad and this is what he does, what does this mean? What does your life look like? And it really opened up the mindset. And I think it's one thing that I always say to say, if you are a parent out there and you can afford, I would say sacrifice everything and take your child to those schools.
Yeah.
You are paying for words that they will never hear anywhere else.
Wow.
You are paying for mindsets that they can only hear. It's so easy to hear a child say, oh, my dad bought a property for me and it's in a trust and this kid is 15 years old. You automatically go home and you start thinking, since my parents can't buy me the property, let me work hard so I can buy the property,
Wow.
And I think that was quite important. But also another aspect that I realized about that school. So we went to school with a lot of politicians' kids.
Okay.
So all the MECs and the members of Parliament of Limpopo, all their kids would go to that school, right?
Okay.
And what was very odd, or what was very different, was that we all knew what was going on in Limpopo at that time. It was the time where we're hearing of Limpopo's bankrupt.
Under administration.
The moment you get onto campus, no one knew that.
Oh.
It was as though the kid who you knew that this is their father who's bankrupting the municipality or whatever, no one knew it, And I always make this point to say the big difference between the high-end private schools and the schools that are not private, or the schools that are the government schools, etc. And
Yeah.
I went to both, so I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Is that in the private schools, the language is always about dreams.
Okay.
You go into Stanford and you ask on a Monday, oh, what did you do? Oh, I'm learning golf. You know?
Okay.
And when I was in Hoërskool Utrecht, the language was about people. And that was the big difference, that when you go to a government school,
Oh, yeah.
and immediately you're wondering, oh, but where is this child getting these words from? And that becomes the story, you know. Whereas in Stanford Lake College, we're reading on the newspaper, this person's dad bankrupted the municipality. And yet when you meet them, nobody in the campus is talking about it.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about their dreams, their
They don't
aspirations.
have time.
They don't have time to do that. But also they come from households where they've been trained. And it's a slippery slope, because I tend to ask myself to say children of corrupt politicians don't know that their parents are corrupt.
Sure.
And they don't even believe that their parents are corrupt.
Yeah.
Because everything around them is framed around them and their dreams and their goals. They are too busy
That's
to...
all they focus
That's all
on.
they are. From swimming, they are moving to... I remember when I went to the private school, and, you know, in where I used to stay in Utrecht, after school is after school, right? You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
There, after school, there's swimming.
Yeah.
There's this. There's hockey. There's this. There's that. There's this club. There's reading club. There's this. And I kept saying they are so occupied in developing, advancing.
Yeah.
And those things don't happen in all the other schools. And the big difference that you see when life begins to happen and these kids progress is that you see the kid that grew up on Nozwipa Uri Apa Hoitiani, or that grew up on an environment where gossip was happening and an environment where it was allowed to do that. That kid grows up thinking, oh, life does work like that. you know. When they think about dreaming about ideas, they think, I don't want to be laughed at school. You know. Whereas in the private schools, they don't laugh at each other.
Sure.
It's very rare that you find them. In fact, you know, it got to a point the other time when I was talking to one of the kids, because I knew some of this information. You know, I asked one of the kids, the dad had come out on the newspaper saying that he was supposed to deliver printing machines for textbooks in Limpopo.
Yeah.
And we saw the article and it said, you know, the dad did not do that. You know? And I went to this kid and I said, because obviously I'm concerned to say how.
Yeah,
your
you are
dad,
acting normally.
you're part of the crime, you know.
Yeah.
And I went to this kid and I was saying to him, no, man, I want to ask you about this. Your dad, and his response was very quick to say, that's my dad's business. I'm not involved. I'm planning my birthday party. Do you want to come to my party? You know?
Wow.
And you look at those nuances and those small things and you realize that the private schools, they are not... The ABCs is ABCs. Anybody can get ABC from any school. It's not that you get a better knowledge or education from those schools. And I think that must be very true, because when I got to the government school, I found that some of the teachers were even better than the private school kids.
Yeah.
So when it comes to education, it's clear that it's a different thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to teaching a child how to think, how to analyze, the lifestyle environment, that was the big difference that I saw.
Yeah, and already from what the conversations that you guys were having, I see leadership. So they are groomed, or they are trained to be leaders at such a young age, that to a point where someone can be assertive enough to say, "But that's my dad's business, not mine."
Exactly.
So for me, I'm just really feeling like goosebumps, because what we always thought you get from private schools is maybe better education and networking opportunities, because like you said, you're rubbing shoulders with the best of the best in the country. However, what you mentioned about the words or the language that are being spoken, in those circles, and these are what really shapes your mindset. It shapes your life ultimately. And I think the way that you're putting it, it's worth it to pay that price, because you're not going to hear those conversations anywhere else. And to me, I feel like the gap is just going to grow bigger and bigger unless we intercept it by taking our kids to, better schools, so to speak.
No, I definitely agree. And I think, the other issue that you sort of saw, and it's interesting because looking at this, I've always thought that, and I'll reference the Bible. The Bible tells us that words are very important. And the Bible keeps emphasizing those things. Meditate upon this day and night. So if you look at a lot of scriptures, they talk about words, right? When God created, he said, let there be words, right? And when you go and you look at society and you look for the people that excel, you tend to find that they are the people that are listening to the right words, right?
Yo.
When I went to, so I left the private school, went to government school, right? And when I got to government school, and I think the private school at that time, I mean, I don't remember how much, I think the fees were about 90,000 Rand a month. I mean, a year.
Okay. Which was a lot.
Which was a lot at that time, It was a lot. And I'm now going to government school where I think the fees were very little.
Yeah.
Right? I don't even remember the amount. But when I got to that school, the first things that people were saying around me was, Mpho Dagada. Which means, has this guy's family lost all the money?
Yeah.
You know? And the conversations were around, now they have fallen from where they were. You know? And when I got there, the first thing that happened is we went to assembly. And when we got to assembly, I was all wondering, okay, we're all standing in the hall, you know? And then the lecturer says, sit down. And I'm busy waiting to say, okay, where are the chairs going to come from? And then they all say, no, here we sit on the ground. And I'm like, okay, we sit on the ground. And I'm now thinking back to the private school to say, in that private school, for you to get a kid to sit down on the ground at assembly, I don't think they would allow that.
Yeah.
You know? And we sit down. And as we sit down, I'm seeing all the white kids are sitting on chairs. And I'm asking my friend, I'm like, why are the white kids on chairs? And they say, those are the prefects.
Okay.
And I say, okay, how do you become a prefect? And they say, well, there's a voting, it's going to be happening, etc., etc. I said, when is it happening? They said, I think it was happening in 3 months' time.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, okay, I'm going to start my campaign.
Okay.
You know.
So this campaigning thing is not
the campaigning thing. And I started my campaign, getting people to vote. And just to end the story, I ended up, becoming a prefect there. Right?
Okay.
I think in a space of 3 months, right?
Wow.
And, they said that was the biggest history in terms of somebody coming to a school and in that same year becoming a prefect, right? And I said to somebody that the biggest gap that we've got, especially in schools that don't function, is that the children tend to not be allowed to dream.
Yeah.
When I got to that school and I asked people who wants to be a prefect, a lot of them were like, this is not for us.
Yeah. Or they haven't even thought about it.
Yeah, they've never. But all the white kids that were on chairs, they were all prefects.
Sure.
So who's talking to them? How are they all prefects and these ones are all not dreaming of being prefects, And when you look at that, you realize that's the silver bullet when it comes to a lot of these institutions. And I've seen it. I mean, I studied at UJ. So after that, I went to UJ and I had an opportunity to go to Stanford University in the US.
Yeah.
And when I got to Stanford University in the US, my thinking has always been there are certain things that Africans cannot do because we are not as smart as Americans, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about, this was when I was still just early university.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it, say, in America, you hear there's a Elon Musk, you hear there's a Mark Zuckerberg. You automatically think, these guys they're thinking differently.
Yeah.
And when I got there and we interacted with them and, did all the programs, I then realized that, no, man, we actually have the right education here in Africa. The same, and I'll use a practical example now, the same AI we've got is the same AI they've got.
Yes.
Right? But they are allowed to dream. So the US becomes the private school, whereas in South Africa, you dare say you want to start a company, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
Remember, this one also failed.
Yeah.
Whereas in America, if you ask in America, who is an entrepreneur that failed? They'll all look at you. I mean, when I first learned this word when I got to America, they said, fail forward. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, in America, if you start a startup, you fail forward, meaning if you fail, you might land up on another idea.
Yeah.
And I said, in Africa, I don't think we have that. And I quickly learned and realized over time that a lot of these institutions, it's like the modeling of the words. It came back to that same thing to say the person who's in Stanford University is doing or building the next biggest application, not because they're smarter than somebody who's in UJ. They're only doing that because the words they are hearing, they are different. To say, here we build for America. We build for the whole world. You know? And then they grow up with that. So I think that was something that shaped me quite early on in life, to say the words and the environment you keep yourself in are very important.
Yeah. But then when you moved from a private school to a government school, How did you then overcome, the culture shock? Because now you are sitting on the floor. and secondly, people are gossiping about you and how at that age, what was going on in your mind?
Yeah. I think, and this is the interesting aspect of it, because when I got there, the one thing I quickly realized was the thing that helped me adjust and understand a lot of things and the way that I approach life.
Yeah.
It was a fundamental understanding of the Word of God.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
And I think when I was still in that old private school, I joined a Christian group called Beings, right? And that was the system there. Because remember, we're not at home.
Yeah.
We are now in boarding school, right?
Yeah.
So every week there was the Word of God coming in. So when I got to the government school, I asked and said, oh, where is the Christian fellowship here or the club? And said, nope, those things are only in rural schools. Here in town, we don't have that.
Wow.
And I said, no, we need to have that.
Yeah.
And I spoke to one of the teachers and I said, listen, I want to start this Christian thing, And I asked around, who are the girls that pray? And they said, oh, there's this other girl that prays. And I went to her and I said, why haven't you not started it? She said, here, you can't do that. This is a government school. You can't just come up with an idea, And I'm thinking, in the private school, the ideas are valid.
Yeah.
There they are saying, no, you don't just decide. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm saying, no, we can. Let's go and ask a teacher. And I went to one of the teachers that really liked me because there was a subject that I was doing well in. And I said to her, can I use your classroom in break time? She said, for what? I said, I just want to call some students, we'll just, have some. And she said, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then I told that girl, I said, tell everybody we are praying come break time, And she went out and she said, hey, Mpho has found a classroom for us guys. We are praying, let's go.
Oh, wow.
And that first time we all gathered there and we all started praying,
Yeah.
And I said to them, please let them know that every break time, we're going to gather here and we're going to pray. And I said to her, look, these are the messages you're going to preach. And I preach about David and Goliath, you're going to preach. And I said, these messages must be hot,
Sure.
Because I always had a thing from a young age where I understood that the words you hear really, really matter. You know? And I've never been... there's one thing I always say. I say, when you teach somebody the Word of God, and the first thing you teach them is Jesus died on the cross for you. Good, they understand that, right? But then after that, you go back and you teach them rules. Exodus, don't do this, 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
I said, that's not the message for young people. The messages you're going to give are these ones, And I started to talk to her, look, let's do this, let's do that. And I remember after doing that, people were saying, oh, well, you should lead it. And I said, hey, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the leader of it. My goal is to be the prefect.
Yeah.
Because I was on my campaign.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I left her with that. And I remember when it started, a lot of people had a lot of questions to say, are we allowed to do this thing? And I said to her, look, go all out.
Yeah.
Pray for people, do this, do that, to the point where there was a time where I was called in and somebody was asking to say, oh, we had that at that Christian fellowship, you guys were casting out devils, students were screaming, etc. And I said, yeah, it's in the Bible.
Yeah.
This thing happened.
Yeah.
And then this person said, no, but we're in a school environment. And I said, oh, well, this thing was in the Bible. So we found them doing it. We are continuing, And all the other students were like, how? But this approach is very different, And I think through that, there were a lot of things that I started. I started a debating team.
Yeah.
We then won nationals, provincials. We became the provincial team.
Yeah.
And when I started it, the same thing. I asked the lecturer, the teacher to say, why is there no debating in the school? And they said, oh, well, in the school, you don't just come up with ideas. I said, I'll be the debating coach. They said, no, you need a teacher. I said, I'll teach the debating. Gathered up students, we did the debating, and that year we won, And there's so many other students that have come in after me, and the debating team is still alive.
Wow.
It's still doing very well. But I think, one of the things that I've really kept on in my life is what are the words that you are listening to? And that's extremely important. I said to somebody the other day, I said, there are certain people that would not have access to me because their words are not right. You know? Not because of the type of person that you are or because of this or that. No, just because your words are wrong.
Yeah.
And I've really learned to value words in life and understand that if you can surround yourself with the right words, you can truly be able to do things.
Sure, that's amazing. Like, yeah, I'm so blown away by the things that you are sharing. And I think, I mean, you are a leader. You can just see that already there. I mean, you were just starting things. And I just was thinking about this to say, are people being held back by rules, or it's imaginary? They add on to the rules to say you can't just do that. Even though the rule is there, people just, shy away just because there's this. They're like, no, we eliminate the whole thing. You can't even do 50% of whatever, So how do you think we can circumvent that for people who are coming up to say, yes, there are rules. However, you can dream around, those rules, because I don't think being a rules-driven person can get you anywhere in this world.
Yeah, I think, and this is the big difference that we see with a lot of people. And I think it would take me back to the Christians, because I said to somebody that if you read the Bible, you realize that everybody in the Bible broke rules.
Thank you.
That's what they did, every single person. You look at Samson, he broke rules. You look at Abraham, the father of faith. Yeah, Abraham had 2 wives.
Yeah.
In today's world, that's breaking a rule.
He broke the rule.
So I always say to them that we need to be sure about the fact that if we're all in a race, right? And if I'm going to enter the race and do what other people have done, then I'm not in the race. I'm simply just joining what has already happened, right?
There's no point.
Before me, there was a David, there was a Joseph, there was so many people.
Yeah.
What did they do? And what can I do so that I also contribute to that?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's very important to say. We are not born to do what has already been done. Because what has already been done, it's already been done. Yeah. You're not changing anybody's life by doing it. And I always say to young people especially, to say, when you do go out, be it in your workplace, be it in your career, wherever you are, don't do exactly what you're told to do and then that's it.
Yeah.
No. Do what you're told to do and even succeed. I said to somebody the other day, I said, when you read the story of Elon Musk, it's such an interesting story. When Elon Musk got to Canada and he started working, right? He started working for a certain guy who had a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And Elon Musk went to this guy and he did his job. So he said every day he'd get into the office, he'd do his job, And this is me now talking to young people to say, if you are employed as a young person, do your job.
Yeah.
Right? And he says after that, he then did the owner of the company's job.
Yeah.
Right. And he went to the owner of the company and he said, listen, you could be making so much more money if you do this, that, and the other. And the owner of the company is like, hey, well, you've done your job. Why are you now entering my job? And he said, no, you're not doing your job correctly. You could be doing this.
Yeah.
And the owner of the company is saying, no, Elon Musk, this thing of yours won't work, etc. Right? And Elon Musk showed him what he's talking about. And the owner of the company did that thing and they made a lot of money.
Wow.
And he says after they made a lot of money, he then resigned and started his own company. And I say this, to say in every environment or every place where you are, there is a bar that another person has set, right? Go above that bar.
Yeah.
You don't have to look for permission.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to go to a place and enter and do what the others have done.
Yeah.
Every single thing that I've done in all the industries that I've operated or been in, that's what I looked for. To say, how do I go in and how do I do things differently from what everybody else has done, And when I'm done doing it differently, ensure that, I go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I have a running joke amongst some of my friends, I always say to them that maybe when I'm a billionaire, I'll entertain sin, And it's a running joke that I have with them. And what I mean by that is, if you have not yet set the bar of the next level of whatever you are involved in, you have no time entertaining sin.
Sure.
There's no time. And maybe just to contextualize what I mean is, you don't have time to be doing everything else that everybody else is doing.
Yes.
You are spending a whole weekend just drinking and talking with friends. And I said, you have no time to be doing that if you have not yet broken that bar. So I live my life like that in every industry, in everything that I do, to say whatever it is, who's got the ceiling, let's jump over that ceiling.
Yeah.
And let's move on to the next level of it.
Sure, that's amazing. And you said you went to USA at what age?
So USA, we're getting older, these numbers. I don't remember I think it was 2017, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so can you say that experience is what led you to, take that leap of faith and start, other things? We're going to get into the blockchain now to say, but where did you get all this information? And, I know you spearheaded, we didn't know about blockchain until we heard of Mpho, So how did you get that information, and, what gave you the courage to go out there and, even write a book about it,
Yeah. So I think when I went to the US, it was a initiative by a gentleman who used to stay in South Africa. He became very wealthy and he moved to Mexico.
Okay.
And what he did is he said, let every young person in Africa that's got a solution, let them come up with their solution. Then we're going to take them to the US, and then we're going to help them develop a solution. And at that time, it was 2017. And I remember how old was I in 2017? But anyway, I was just fresh in university vibes.
Yeah.
And when I was creating solutions, I came up with a solution to say, so my mom's a nurse, right?
Okay.
And I've always known that when nurses look at you, they look at you with their physical eyes, and then they assess you, and then the doctor moves forward, right?
Yeah.
So I came up with a solution called Nurse VR. And I said, this is where a nurse gets to wear goggles. So she gets to wear, they're calling it the Vision Pro. She gets to wear those. Then she gets to look at a patient. And through those, it can tell her what she cannot see with her eyes. Like, for example, if there's swelling on the left eye, through her goggles, it will tell her, okay, there's swelling on the left eye. And it will give her the information to do what she needs to do, right? And I pitched that. And after pitching, the guy said, this is a brilliant idea. And we went over to the US and we joined with other teams and we worked on it and etc. And we called it Nurse VR.
Okay.
And when I came back to South Africa, I said, right, let's develop this thing. This is 2017, by the way, and I want to show you something interesting.
Yeah.
And I knocked in every company saying, I've come up with an idea where nurses can wear these goggles.
Yeah.
And it will help them. It will reduce costs in hospitals. We had the whole thing, Everywhere I went in South Africa, 2017, everybody said, this thing won't work.
It can't be done.
Yeah, they said, this thing of yours, we don't understand it. Sorry, man, apply for a tender there, maybe.
Oh.
And this year or last year, you then hear that, Mark Zuckerberg has been working on the Facebook things for 10 years, right? And I'm thinking, how? But I also had that idea as well.
Sure.
You now see as well, Apple is now releasing these goggles as well. I'm like, I also had that idea. So imagine if I was in the US and I went and I knocked at those hospitals because they speak that language. I said, this is brilliant. Let's invest in it. Let's do it. But because I was here in South Africa, everybody was saying, this thing of yours, we're not sure whether it's, So that was the part of the US. But how I got involved in crypto was I was in university and I was trying out a whole lot of things to make money. That was my thing. One of the things that I used to do is I used to go and attend a lot of talks by different people.
Okay.
And I remember I went one day to Sandton Convention Center and I attended a talk. It was Robert Kiyosaki speaking. And Robert Kiyosaki said in that talk, he said, if you do not have more than 7 streams of income, you will not become a millionaire.
Sure.
And I remember going back to university thinking, that guy was so rude. He said, if you don't have 7... By the way, I'm a student.
Yeah.
So I don't even have 1 stream of income,
Sure.
And I went back and I said, right, let's start to figure out what streams of incomes we're going to build.
Yeah.
And I tried all these different small businesses that I opened and I write about it in the book. But how I got involved with crypto, it was through a lady that had introduced me to a scam. So on the journey of trying to make money, I always say to people that, we've been through so many things
You
to
must
make
be
this money.
scammed once or twice.
It was this lady. Her name was Funeka.
Okay.
And she was on Facebook.
Okay.
And Funeka said, right, we've started something called Kipi.
Okay.
And she said, on Kipi, you put in money. And after you put in money, it doubles after a year.
Okay.
Right? And you log on to this Kipi system and you put in the money and then you watch it double.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, you know what? I'm investing now. And I put in my money as a student. This is money I was making from cleaning other students' rooms, selling Burabos rolls, all this money that I was making, I put it into Kipi. And I remember, so how Kipi used to work, the people that have ever, it used to tell you every day, like it used to say, it was this system. And now that I think about it, I'm like, yo, we were abused. It was an online system. You used to put in the initial amount of money you wanted to invest. And then you would have to write what your dream was.
Okay.
So I would write and say, my dream is to start a business after graduating, right? And then I'd put in money. I think at that point I put in 2,000 Rand. So you put in 2,000 and then they say after a year you're going to get it as maybe, no, it wasn't even double. It was much more.
Okay.
I think we were going to get it as, I think 50,000. It was much more. It was good.
Okay.
I put in my 2,000. I wrote my dream. They had a place for you to write. To write your dream. I wrote my dream. I said, she said, no, this thing is legitimate. I've been doing Kipi, It was a lot of us, by the way. In Soweto, grandmothers were there putting in their, Kipi will save us, Hi, every day, everybody would come to these meetings. Okay, open up your Kipi account. We opened up our Kipi account. How far are you from your dream? We said, hey, we are close. And through the whole process, every time we went to the meetings, there'd be a grandmother coming, I put 2 years ago, I put my money in Kipi. I've now built a house, Kipi Aroka, and Minam thinking, Kipi Aroka, my life is about to change, Then they started to say no. And with Kipi, it was different because we were all taught that if you join a scam, you have to recruit others.
Yes.
So Kipi was not like that. You didn't have to. You could. I mean, there were people that recruited, but you didn't have to recruit. You just put in your money and you write your dream.
Okay.
Yeah. And every time you log on and on Kipi, it's showing you the money you've made. And I remember, I think I was left with about 180 days. I think I was halfway mark, sort of.
Yeah.
Keep going. Every time I'm logging in, other people are testifying on the Facebook group. Hey, Kipi, I got my money. I'm now getting excited with, hey, my 50,000 is coming.
It's on its way.
I think Kipi was on, I think it was 60 days before I needed to be paid. So every time you check with others, like, have you been paid? But no, I've been paid. I know.
Okay.
My day is coming. I think it was about 60 days before mine came. I logged on to Kipi. As I'm logging on to Kipi, Kipi now says, no, you now need to pay using Bitcoin.
Okay.
I'm thinking, hi, I'm not paying anything. I'm waiting for my day 60. It's coming.
Yeah.
My day arrives. I'm calling Sissy. It's now time to pay on this Kipi thing. She says, no, they've introduced a new system where you now need to pay to do this. I'm saying, hey. I've been waiting my dream.
Yeah.
She says, no, there's this thing. And I said to her, you know what? I've been scammed. I don't want to hear anything. You must work hard for money. I don't believe in these things of yours,
Yeah.
And she kept calling me to say, hi, please help us. You're one of the young ones. And by the way, I really was one of the young ones because nobody else in university was attending.
I mean, yeah.
And then Soweto believing, Kipi Rock. And then what happens is she then continues to beg me to say, look, just pay for us this thing, this Bitcoin thing, because you're young, you get it. I go on the internet, I'm checking, okay, Bitcoin. I call her back. When I check that time, there's Chinese blogs. I call her back and I say, no, it's a scam. It's not going to work. She says, no, man, just pay it. I just need us to get our money back.
Yeah.
This, that, and the other. I say, you know what? She's an elderly person. We need to respect the elders. So it's fine. Send me the money. And then that's when I bought my first Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And after buying it, I kept checking, okay, what's going on? So after the next day after buying it, the price had increased. So I call her back and I'm like, how? This thing is not like Kipimo's. The price increased automatically. I can see the chart.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah. So what do we do? And I said, hey, I want to withdraw my money. I don't know what you're going to do. And I said to her, can I have a portion of the money that I'd made? I withdrew it. And then she withdrew. But it left me with that question of saying, no, man. This thing called Bitcoin, we bought this thing and then the money doubled.
Yeah.
It was like, how? Kipi exists, but it's not called Kipi, it's called Bitcoin. And day afterwards, I just got absorbed in that whole world. And I understood it and learned it and really mastered it.
So you started investing in it and you started teaching other people how to...
Yes, yeah. So how it worked was I started buying more and more of it. And as I started buying more and more of it, I was part of the Americans. And I think this is why I always say it's so important to hear the right languages.
Yeah.
Right? Because in South Africa, it's very rare that you hear somebody tell you that they're making good money.
Yeah.
I always tell this story of when I went to New York. So when I got to New York, and I went to New York, recently, not when I was
not the first time, okay.
Yeah. And when I went to New York, there was a time where these guys said, okay, we've done with business, we're going to a party, right? And we're going to this party, and they said, oh, it's Paris Hilton's party. And I said, oh, Paris Hilton? They said, this is Paris Hilton. I said, okay, cool, let's go to the party.
Okay.
We get to the party. And when we get to the party, all the black people are all seated by the bar area, and I'm saying, how? Let's go and sit next to the celebrant, the party person. And they said, no, you need money to do that. And I said, hi, man, let's just go, we'll see. And I remember stepping on, it was the celebrant's table, and there was another table here.
Yeah.
I remember stepping on some white boy's shoe there, right? Yeah. And trying to pass to go to the... And he says to me, no, where are you going? And I'm like, oh, I'm going there. He's like, sorry, did you have to go back? And I say, oh, what's the problem? And he said, I paid $10,000 for this table.
Oh.
And the moment he says that to me, in my mind, obviously when somebody is disrespectful, you want to respond to say, oh, you don't know who I am.
Yeah.
My mind quickly does $10,000 times 19. At that time, it was 18.
Yeah.
I'm like, 180 for a table. I pause, I look around, and I step back.
Yeah.
I step back, I go to this young man, and I'm like, hi, man. You say you made this money. How did you make this money?
Yeah.
He says, I work on Wall Street. And
okay.
I said, Wall Street. And he said, Wall Street, this is where we trade for the big firms, etc., etc. And I said, how much did your friend make? And he said, oh, my friend makes this much. How much is this one? And I'm looking at these young guys, and I'm like, hey, well, in South Africa, we don't have anybody who makes this amount of money. I'm thinking, hi, this is bigger salary than an executive in a company, And it takes me back to that to say the words. So when I started Bitcoin, I was only talking to other people that were involved in the same thing. It was not South Africans, it was international people.
Yeah.
So I started talking to them on these blogs, they're saying, oh, Bitcoin is going to the moon. I'm saying, hi, what does this word moon mean? They said, no, moon means if you look there in the sky, you see the moon. I said, yeah, I see the moon. They said, how far is that moon? I said, that moon is very far. They said, draw a line. Drew a line to the moon. They said, that's where Bitcoin is going. The chart of Bitcoin is going to go up in the direction.
Okay.
I said, how these young people speak differently.
Yeah.
In Africa, I've never heard young people say that something is going to the moon. Our language is always, hey, this and that. Hey, Uber is expensive.
Others also.
That's the language of the day. And I'm listening to these young kids talk, and I remember bumping into another one. Oh, what do you do? He says, no, I work at Louis Vuitton. I sell suits. I say, okay, how much do you make? And he's telling me how much he makes. And I'm saying, how do you make that by selling suits? And he says, well, wealthy people buy my suits at Louis Vuitton. I'm the salesperson there, and this is my commission. And I'm thinking, we don't have this language. This language is not being taught. It's not being spoken, And I was so good that when I got into crypto, I could only speak to those people and in that language.
Yeah.
And the first thing I realized is they only talk in dollars. If you talk to anybody in cryptocurrency and you mention rands, they will look at you and say, what are you talking about? This rands are for third world countries. Yeah, we talk in dollars, And I had to shift and start talking in dollars, And after that, I had to start talking to people that were also involved in this cryptocurrency thing, asking them, oh, so what are you doing? And this guy's saying, no, I've just bought more Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to the moon. Now in my mind, I'm now asking my Old Mutual people that work at Old Mutual. So there at the unit trust at Old Mutual, is it going to the moon? I said, what do you mean? Unit trust, you get 9% per annum. Yeah. I said, hi, man, that does not sound like it's going to the moon. There was a kid
going to the
whose
moon.
foot that I stepped. Yeah. He said this thing is going to the moon, And if you go to those spaces and you listen to those kids talk, all of them are talking that way. Oh, I'm buying this stock. My stock is going to the moon. I'm buying this one. I'm doing that one. And then when I came to South Africa, I'm listening to South Africans talk, and all they're talking about is, this weekend, where are we going to groove? Where are we doing this? And I'm thinking, this is not the moon language. Guys, let's talk the moon language.
We are not going anywhere.
Yeah, we're going. And it was through learning that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people started to ask me to say, we want to learn about Bitcoin. And I said, you know what? I don't have time to be teaching because it's quite a process to teach you.
Yeah.
Right? So I can write a book and you can buy the book. They said, okay, that's fine. So I asked somebody, I said, oh, what do you have to do to write a book? I said, no, you need to maybe have a doctorate. Or, maybe you need to have studied for many years. I said, I'm just a second year student here at UK. What is this doctorate you're telling me about?
Yeah.
I said, well, you don't need to write a book, right? And I remember walking to one of the biggest publishers in South Africa. They're called Jacana. And I went there, and the owner's called Bridget. And when I got there, I said, right, who's the owner? They said, the owner's Bridget. They said, okay. I said, I want to write a book.
Yeah.
They said, okay, you want to write a book? This is interesting. What is the book about? I told them it's about Bitcoin. At that time, it was still new. Everybody said, what? I said, yeah, Bitcoin.
Yeah, what
they
is
said,
it?
No. Maybe you don't understand. We don't write books on gaming. Like, books need to be on, stuff
real.
that people want to read.
Yeah.
I said, this thing is real. It's going to the moon. They
Yeah.
said, no. Those internet things, they don't exist. It's not going to
Oh.
work. They said to me, come back. We've got a competition called Pitch to Publication, where you
Okay.
pitch to people your book idea, and maybe we'll listen to you.
Okay.
And I went back and I started writing my book. Right, this is what a Bitcoin is. This is my story, this, that, and the other. And then I gave it to somebody and I said, right, here's the book on Bitcoin. Please read it. And the
Yeah.
person said, I didn't even read it. I said, what is the problem? He said, the book was so boring. You're writing about Bitcoin. It's unrelatable. It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
I said, oh, what must I write? And then they said, no, tell us the story.
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay. Went back and I changed the book. Okay, my name is Mpho. I grew up in Venda. This is my journey. This is my story.
Yeah.
Then I gave them the book. Then they said, yeah, this we will read,
Okay.
And I went and I pitched the book, and the publisher said, right, she said, oh, we like this. We're going to publish you. I won the competition.
Sure.
Wrote the book and I published the book, and the book became a bestseller.
How did that happen?
I think it was because Bitcoin at that time was so new that there was
Okay.
no other book.
Yeah.
Firstly.
Yeah.
But also I think it was because I was one of the few that understood it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I automatically, everybody then bought the book. And also because the publisher said to me, listen, how much have you made from this thing? Because they're publishers, they need to make sure
They
that
need
the
to
thing
know,
is real.
yeah.
So I showed them, I said, oh, here's my bank accounts. I've made the million. This is what I did. Then the publisher said, no, right there. How I
Wow.
became a millionaire. And I did that, and the book did very, very well.
Oh, okay. That's where you got the name Mr. Bitcoin.
That's where I got the name, the title of the book.
Yeah,
Mr.
well done,
Bitcoin.
well done,
Yeah.
well done with that. So I wanted to ask because you are very spiritually, awakened, and also you are, the first Bitcoin millionaire in South Africa, right? And your experiences with people maybe in the USA, when we grew up, we were taught that, being rich, doesn't go hand in hand with Christianity, How was your experience with people who you met who were rich in USA, for instance, and, your beliefs of Christianity?
I think it was very interesting to see the difference, So in the US, I mean, I'll never forget that experience because it shaped my life. You just step on somebody's shoe at a party,
Yeah.
and already they're telling you that the table is $10,000.
Yeah.
What they're saying to you is that if you don't have $10,000, you better move back.
Yeah.
And when I was there in the US, a lot of experiences. I mean, I remember going to, there was a place, they said this is a restaurant owned by Halle Berry. I went to that in LA. And when I got there, there was a long line. And I said to somebody, why is there a line to the restaurant? Then they said, no, the restaurant is owned by Halle Berry. And I said, no, I know that. And I know Halle Berry is famous. In
Yeah.
Africa, we've got famous people as well.
Yeah.
But why is there a line outside a restaurant?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, well, you can't get in. There's a whole procedure to get in here. They need to check who you are, see how much money you have, and etc. And I remember waiting in that line, and I said to a friend of mine, I'm like, I'm not going to wait for that. Let's go to the front of the line.
Yeah.
Go to the front of the line, and we're like, listen, we want to get into this place.
Yeah.
And immediately they say, well, who are you? How many followers do you have? How much money do you have? They start asking those questions. And they're not asking, by the way, no, they're asking you, take out your phone and show us how much followers you have. Take out your phone and it's in those environments that I got to see that, no, man, this money thing, we have not been told about money correctly.
Yeah.
Right? We've always thought or been told that money is the devil, we've been told the one side.
Yeah.
We've not been told that there are certain doors you cannot enter. If you don't have the money.
Yo.
We've never been told
Yeah.
that, to say, you might afford to eat at Halle Berry's
Yeah.
restaurant, but because you're not rich or because you're not somebody,
Yeah.
here you can't enter.
Sure.
And in the US, that is so prevalent. It's in your face, And it was there where I sort of learned that, is this what money is? That money is not, it's not something to buy food with.
Yeah.
It's something to open up opportunity.
Yeah.
And in the US, they're very clear about that. From the onset, the moment you get there, you understand that, I mean, when I went to the US, a friend of mine said to me, "Oh, you need to go." So I went to New York, and they said, "You need to go stay in Brooklyn." Right? I said, "Why Brooklyn?" I said, "No, Brooklyn is where, all the black people stay, all the basketball players stay there, so because you're black." Maybe. And I said, "Hi, but I don't play basketball. And also I want to be at Wall Street,
Yeah.
And they said, no. What do you mean you want to be at Wall Street? How much money do you have? They don't say,
Sure.
What is your education?
Yeah.
I want to be in Wall Street. I've studied this. I've written a book. No. I mean, when I went to the US and I wanted to get involved with a lot of people there, and I must be very clear about this to say, when I go to the US, my idea is to go into business with people in the US.
Okay.
Right? And because I don't want people taking me out of context saying, "Oh, no, but this guy's saying only people in the US are." No, sure, maybe you can go to Disneyland. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right? How do you meet the owner of Disney? That's what I want. Right? You go to this place, they call them these houses, right? Soho House.
Okay.
Right? And you want to go there so you can network with a business person.
Yeah.
They tell you there's a 5-year waiting list for you to enter. But if you are wealthy, you can, or if you come from this family, you can then become part of that club, And when you go to those environments, you realize that, no, man, money is a very big enabler.
Yeah, it is.
And we don't talk about it enough. I said to somebody the other day that when I started going to gym, when I was still in Limpopo, I didn't really go to gym because there wasn't really a gym to go to. If you're training,
yeah, that was it. Yeah,
and that's it. And when I moved this side, somebody said to me that no, there's a gym where it's a very expensive gym. Very rich people go there. And I remember I said, "Oh, how much is the gym?" They said, "Oh, the gym costs this much. It's a Virgin Active, but it's called the Collection Club."
Okay.
And I remember I paid for that gym membership. I mean, this is a young boy from Venda, so you need to understand the context.
Yes.
Right? And when I went to that gym, on the first day that I went to the gym, I'm busy looking around. I'm saying, how that person is the CEO of this company. How that person is the CEO of this company.
Sure.
How that person is the CEO of this company. And as I'm looking at all these people, I'm thinking, the CEO. And one of the things that I've realized in South Africa is that we have we also have what the US has.
Yes.
It's just that our one is not, we are not that blatant about it.
Yeah.
But you will see it when you are going to a normal Virgin Active.
Yeah.
And I mean, even people watching might be saying, "What is he talking about? I thought we all go to the same Virgin Active."
No, that's what I'm thinking. I didn't know. Sure.
And it's not. There's the Virgin Active where all the wealthy people go to. And even if you are saying you want to send your proposal, the person is there in the Virgin Active. And it begins to shape your mind. It's a small thing, I remember when I first went to that Virgin Active, I remember I used to look at the treadmills and think, who is the richest person on the treadmill? Then I see somebody, I go on to Google, okay, what is their net worth? I find their net worth. I'm like, oh, this person is wealthy. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go and run next to this person. And while I'm on the treadmill, I'm running next to them. As I'm running, that person afterwards, they're like, "Oh, young man, you run very well." I'm thinking, the CEO of Anglo. Anglo just said I run very well. And it's through those things that they become normal.
Yeah.
Now when I go to that gym, I'm very irritable. I'm thinking, somebody's going to ask me about something. I just want to go to gym. I put in my earphones. I don't want to hear anybody say anything, because I got so acclimatized to going to that gym and getting used to that gym, to the point where going to that gym then it doesn't mean anything to me anymore, know. But to tell a person or a Christian or whoever to say, the proposal you are sending, the person you are sending the proposal to, that person goes to gym as well. The problem is that you're not going to the same gym as them.
Yes.
Yeah. And all you need is money to enable you to have access to that. So money is very important when it comes to opening doors. And you also get to understand this. And I think this is something that I've always looked at rich people and thought, rich people are wicked. This is what you get to understand. Rich people are very lazy. They do not work hard at all.
Yeah.
They're extremely lazy. People always get shocked when they look at my work ethic. Right? And I'm always just like, no, but this work ethic is normal. Everybody in Venda works this hard.
Yeah.
We don't do
hard workers.
Yeah, we're hard workers. If you come from Venda, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're a hard worker, And to the point where I was saying to somebody the other day, I said, when you go to my grandmother's place, right? My counterparts, which are girls, like my cousins and stuff, right? They wake up in the morning and the first thing they're doing is boko swera muta. They are sweeping, and this is like at maybe 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
You know? After sweeping, boko jakuni. They're going to get firewood.
Yeah.
Right? They come back. I'm subtitling for the people that speak English. They come back, they make a fire.
Yeah.
They cook pap in the morning. Pap is not for dinner, for the morning.
No,
one,
for
right?
breakfast.
They're not cooking in a small little stove. No, it's a fire.
Yeah.
They are using a whole a huge pot to cook, right? And then after that process, after doing that, they wash the pots. After doing that, they're then preparing for the afternoon to cook again, right?
Yeah.
And what are the gentlemen doing? And maybe let me give context, because the family I come from, this is what my grandfather used to do. It's either if you are a lady, you are cooking, or you are going to the farm.
Okay.
Right? And you're going to work there. And that's how my dad grew up.
Yeah.
You know? And he'll, even every time you go there, he'll show you, right? I used to do that, I used to do that. So there was a culture of working hard.
Yes.
You know? And when I go to Joburg and I'm meeting these certain people, and somebody will say, no, I start my meetings at 11 o'clock in the day, you know. And around 3 o'clock, I come back and I do my yoga, and that's it. And I'm thinking,
when do you work?
What do you mean? You know, and then they're like, no, that's what we do. And I'm thinking, hey, the inventor, there's nobody who starts a meeting at 11.
No.
Like, that in the whole of Venda, you will struggle to find a single person at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know? And when I look at all these other places, I'm like, this is very odd. You know? We even have special words in Venda that speak to laziness.
Yeah.
Niko vapa, ndibuva,
Hey.
you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of these words speak to the fact that a lot of people are able to work hard. But that is not quite the secret to success.
Yes.
The secret is the money, the enabler, right? So that for me was the first eye-opener. The second eye-opener was also understanding that rich people make money because of knowledge and not because of hard work. This was very difficult for me to understand, and I think I've come to see a lot of it happen. You know, I met very young people in the US, kids that go to Wall Street or that work in Wall Street. You know, and you ask this kid, "What do you do per day?" Right? The kid will tell you, "I come in, I analyze the markets, I place 2 trades, and that's it." Right? And you ask them, "Okay, how much do you earn?" Right?
Yeah.
And then they'll tell you, "No, my bonus last year was $3 million." Right? And you ask them, "What are you managing?" And they're like, "Well, I'm managing the funds of this pension fund, I'm managing this hedge fund," or whatever the case is, right? And when you get to that level, you then start to think to yourself to say, no, man, they must be a lie that we've been told.
Yeah.
And the lie we've been told is that this thing called money is evil, this thing called money, this thing called... We have not been told the other side of money is an enabler.
Yes.
And I think that's the most important side, to say when you have money, you have that enablement. But let me take it to the next level, because I think there's another level of this. Money is an enabler to allow you to think and execute without limits. And this is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Right? I've met people that did not have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But because they were able to think and execute at a level of no limits, they were able to make a lot of money. What do I mean, right? You meet a young kid and he's in the US, right? And he says to me, "Listen, I went to this hedge fund. They've given me $5 million. I'm buying Bitcoin for them," right?
Okay.
And in your mind, you're thinking, in South Africa, I've sat with all the billionaires. The moment I mention Bitcoin, they won't even get it, right?
Sure.
It's a hassle. It's a fight to explain what it is.
Yeah.
You know? And you go to the US and you listen to this young man saying this, then you're wondering, hey, but this young man, what does he mean? You know? And you watch him do it, and he makes a lot of money from it, right? That young man did not have money to start with. He went to a hedge fund, he got the $5 million, he's using it to make more money, right? So it could be incorrect to say that you need money to open doors for you. So what then is the right thing? The accurate thing is you need to think correctly for you to get there, right? And this is what I always say. When you look at how the guys in Wall Street behave, those are the characteristics of Jesus.
Okay.
I don't think people read the Bible. And I've said this so many times.
No, they don't.
Yeah. I think people go to church and they listen. They just listen, you know.
Yeah.
Jesus gets to a well where this woman has been pouring water. She was digging water from the ground, lifting this water up.
Yeah.
And he says to this woman, "Woman, give me this water to drink."
Yeah.
And the woman looks at him and says, "Please,
Yeah.
dig your own thing."
Yeah.
And he says to the woman, "You have 5 husbands." He says to the woman, "Where are your husbands?"
Yeah.
And the woman says, "No, my husband," she responded. Then he says, "No, this is because you have this many husbands."
Yeah.
If you read that scripture,
Yeah.
Jesus was cocky. How do you get to a woman who was digging water the whole day and say to her, "Give me that water"?
Yeah. Yeah.
You look at the guys at Wall Street. They also behave the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, I can turn this $1 million to $5 million.
Yeah.
Hi, but how are you speaking like that when my mother woke up in the morning at 4 o'clock and she took a taxi
Yeah.
and she went to do this and did that and she's working so hard to be successful? Now you've got this young person who's saying he can make $1 million in one day. This young man is cocky.
Yeah. Yeah.
This young man